Welcome into Red River North, right here on Total Coverage Sports. We got Zac Symm, Mr. At the Dish himself. We've got Randy Heitz, and you got me, Dave Myrick. We made it, boys. One of the best weeks of the year is here. College baseball gets underway Friday. Oklahoma down at Globe Life taking on Texas Tech. Texas takes on some high school out of California. Easy draw to start with. Zac, rotations. I think we kind of know what things are right now. Talk about your beloved Horns and what you're looking for out of this weekend with them.
Yeah, Texas decided to change things up a little bit. They're going to go with the senior right-hander Ruger Riojas, and then on Saturday they'll go with the veteran graduate Luke Harrison. He's a lefty, and then the guy that everyone is kind of waiting to see who was going to or where he was going to fit in is the lefty Dylan Vlantis. Last year he was purely out of the pen. I like the rotation and the fact that you get a lot of veteran experience in there. People will kind of look at you weird about Ruger being the Friday night guy, but this fall he's pretty much been unhittable. I mean, he's had some really good action on his fastball. His velo's ticked up a little bit. And then the nice thing about it is he put 15 pounds on his body in the offseason. And so he's bulked up a little bit, and he's got more strength, so he has that durability. And most people will kind of look back to last year and they say, oh man, he wasn't that great at the end of the year. Well, the guy lost 20, 25 pounds after he got the flu and bronchitis right before the last 3 series of the season. And that really affected his ability to pitch and then, throw with any velo durability. So I think it's a good rotation. And honestly, even if the rotation's not good on a single day, the starter, they got so many arms behind them that it's like, oh, well, you've got Jason Flores, you've got Brett Crossland, you've got Michael Winter. I mean, they've got just arms after arms to roll through there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fit those freshmen in, because there's kind of 5 freshmen that they want to mix in. But a lot of depth this year for the Texas rotation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of funny. I think that's a way of things changing in college baseball. We've seen it in the majors as well. You
Yeah.
talk about having guys behind them. You don't need anymore, it doesn't seem like, guys to go out there and give you 7, 8 innings. It feels like, and I'm sure that's how Schloss and the guys feel at Texas as well right now. Hey, you go out and give me 5 innings. I feel really good. Back to your point about the depth they have, and that's kind of what Oklahoma feels. With that depth, you give me 5 innings, we can piecemeal together 3 games in a row in a series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the statistics that the coaches always throw out, and they say in the SEC, a starter averages 4-point-something innings, 4.1 or 4.2 innings.
Crazy.
I mean, that's a lot that you're then putting on the bullpen 3 days in a row. And if you do have a guy, to your point, that can give you 5 or even 6, that's huge. But yeah, I mean, Texas from this weekend, they're not going to throw guys out there for 7 innings, right? They're all going to be on pitch counts or inning counts. They're going to let them get in there, get their work in, and then let's get to the bullpen to see what we have behind them. Because, even though there's a rotation for opening weekend, Sloss said it today. He said, listen, they've essentially got 4 weeks to prove themselves. The real rotation starts when Ole Miss comes to town for the SEC opener. He's like, before that, I don't care what it looks like. He's like, get outs, get your work in, get built up, and let's take it from there.
There's a team up I-35 in Norman, I think, that's probably going to have that same approach. Their rotation comes out. Cam Johnson, Mercurius, and the freshman Sunday starter. A little surprise on that Sunday starter, Zac, you and I talked about before we got Randy on. But we'll talk more about OU. This is going to be kind of a broad spectrum SEC show. Just kind of wanted to go over some ranks since we got a Texas Longhorn in here. Texas preseason 2nd pick by the SEC coaches. Oklahoma way down at 14th. Just from a outsider perspective that knows college baseball, what did you think about OU being ranked 14th by the coaches?
That was a lot lower than I have them ranked for sure. I mean, when you look at what Oklahoma returns on paper from a lineup and offensive perspective, they've probably got one of the deepest lineups in the SEC this year from a production standpoint. Now, obviously, year over year, it doesn't always add up, but if you really have to put your trust in Skip at that point and say, okay, well, if they got the deepest offensive lineup they've had probably in a number of years, they may not have that elite star like a Carmichael or one of those guys, but depth. And then if Skip can work his magic and have even a decent rotation, Like that's a team that's going to be in a regional, right? I don't think they're going to host one, but I had them closer to like the 8 range, right in the middle of the pack for SEC play.
And that leads me to this point on the SEC. I'm kind of with you. I think 14 might be a little low, but also I think it just shows the ridiculous depth in this conference, because
Yeah.
I can make an argument for Oklahoma in 14th just because you look at the other teams in this conference that are in that, let's say, heck, 5 to 14 range. I think you can mix and match a lot of teams there. And that's kind of what's scary. And I want to get your thoughts talking about this depth. Texas had a great year winning the regular season in the SEC. But what did this coaching staff, and really what did you learn maybe that you didn't realize? We all knew the SEC was good coming in, but maybe was there something that stuck out to you about last year where you're like, wow, that was even better than I expected, or the quality is even better? What's something that jumped out at you after last year?
I think for me, the thing that really stood out about the SEC was when you looked at the schedule before the season started, you're like, okay, yeah, we've got LSU coming to town. We've got A&M coming to town, like Georgia, Auburn, like the big series. And then by the time they rolled around, it was like, yeah, these teams are performing like the number 5 team in the nation, or the records showed that and reflected that. And the thing that I kept going back to was throughout the season as SEC play started, you'd hear the Texas coaches after a game or after a series go, "This is not normal. Like you don't sweep teams like this, regardless of being at home or not. I mean, it just does not happen." And so, there was a lot of veteran leadership, which I think is maybe your biggest worry about this Texas team. They lost kind of that core group that had been together for 3+ years. Do they still have that same kind of continuity if they get punched in the mouth early? Right? Like, what does that look like? And so, yeah, the SEC though, honestly, I think the scariest road trip that Texas took last year, outside of going to Arkansas, in which they got swept, was the Kentucky trip. It's one of those teams where you're like, listen, I don't know how good they are. They don't have a lot of offense. They play in a kind of a strange park. And I mean, Kentucky had them on the ropes for 2 of the 3 games and could have easily won that series. So it's just, there's no days off in the SEC by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, even up at Missouri, I remember you guys kind of getting into a dogfight with the Tigers last year in that series. I mean, just when you think you've got a weekend like to take a breath, that doesn't exist in this league, guys. It is a regional every single weekend. That's what OU and Texas wanted. That's what they got. Also wanted to take a look at the opening schedule of the weekend for the SEC. A couple of good games stand out. Zach's Texas Longhorns, not one of them. Oklahoma, Texas Tech, intriguing. Northern Kentucky and South Carolina. You got Wright State with a series against the number 15 Georgia Bulldogs. Milwaukee against number 2 LSU. Number 18 Kentucky. There are your Wildcats against UNC Greensboro. Number 23 Vanderbilt against number 10 TCU. That will be an intriguing one to watch. Nickel State versus Tennessee, Youngstown State, Auburn, Hofstra, Mississippi State, Nevada, Ole Miss. And then, it gets pretty boring from there. Anything about that, Zach, stand out to you that you just can't wait to get your eyes on?
For me, all eyes are going to be in Arlington. You've got Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Oklahoma going up against, TCU, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State.
Yeah. So,
obviously, anytime Oklahoma State and Oklahoma get together, you kind of throw the paperwork out and say it's going to be a dogfight. I have personally picked TCU as a team that's going to make it to Omaha. I have a lot of belief in that squad in terms of the youth and the talent that they put together up there. I am very low on Texas Tech. I think they've got like 2 hitters and a handful of arms that are,
I agree,
okay, but I got a firsthand look at them in the fall, and I came away thinking, well, they haven't got any better since last year, and last year they had a losing record. Like, where's the continuity, or where's the development here? But that said, that TCU and Oklahoma State will be interesting to see how Holidays kind of turn them around, because they weren't very good last year either. But they get to face 3 SEC teams right off the bat.
I think one of the more interesting teams in the SEC to watch all year long, but especially kind of how they start, and that is Georgia, because they have taken a totally different map than what Texas and Oklahoma have done. Yes, so both those schools taken transfers out of the portal. Yes, but they're building it as a unified team. A lot of high school kids, maybe JUCO kids, out of the recruiting class, mixed with some portal guys. Georgia and what Coach Johnson's done there, it is insane. What was it I saw? Like, I think 50% of his roster is transfers.
They brought in 21 kids from the portal.
That's
Yeah,
great.
and so I think this is going to be a good litmus test for college teams and want to play the portal. We all know what works with a team is chemistry. How are those 21 kids, even though they've been together since fall and now early spring practice, how is that going to translate when things get a little rocky, or somebody that came in as a transfer portal doesn't get to start or gets benched? I mean, Zach, it's going to be interesting to see how that Georgia team plays out. Talent-wise, they got a ton, but is the chemistry going to be there?
Yeah, the other thing I look at is if you look at, and they haven't announced the rotation, but if you project forward some of the names they brought in, like a Matt Scott, a Volchko, some of those guys, they didn't exactly put up great numbers at their last stop. Now, that is always their surroundings, right? Maybe they had bad defense behind them or whatever else. But, two of those guys were at Stanford in the rotation and they had 6+ ERA. I know Wes Johnson is really good at pitching, but how do they make that transition, right? Like, does it automatically click for them? If not, to your point, you've got a lot of options, but you don't know what you have. Like, there's no continuity that kind of runs through the seam of that team. And when you're trying to reinvigorate and remake yourself every year, that can be really, really tough. And the same thing about South Carolina, I think, right? Like, I already have South Carolina picked second to last. They've already had 2 massive injuries on their squad. They've got a couple other guys that are potentially injured. They're still waiting kind of for the news. But, if they start rocky, I think that could go downhill really quickly. I don't know if everyone heard the stories last year out of their dugout, but it wasn't pretty. And it could snowball real fast.
I mean, there was a part of me, I'm kind of shocked Molinari's back with some of the stories I had heard out of that dugout last year.
Same. And that fan base doesn't put up with mediocre baseball for long. So, that's going to be a good watch. But that's a great point. I mean, that kind of reminds me of Ole Miss in football a couple of years ago. They stacked their team in the portal, right? It makes sense. It looks glorious on paper, but sometimes that's not the best way to go about it. College baseball, I think, can work different just because of relationships. It's more of an individual game with guys under a spotlight, right, on the field. But that might work better. But that's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out for Georgia. They're one of the higher-ranked SEC teams. Of course, you got LSU, Vanderbilt ranked, Bama, and Texas. Beyond that, I mean, I think this league is very deep and very good, of course. There just doesn't seem to be, outside LSU, and they've got questions this year, there doesn't seem to be that just for surefire thing in this league.
Yeah, I think the funny thing that Schlossnagle talked about on Monday when we did our podcast was he said, look, we might have a better team this year and go further and have a worse record than last year. I mean, like, you're just the odds of starting out, what it was like 17-1 in SEC play, it's just likely not going to happen again. And so I think Texas, unlike Oklahoma, does have the advantage of a much softer schedule in the SEC. But the reality is, like, every single one of the big tests for Texas is on the road, at A&M, at Vanderbilt, at Tennessee, even South Carolina. South Carolina is not an easy place to play, regardless of how bad their team, I think, is going to be. But it'll be interesting to see how Texas does on the road with, not having those big series at home like they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that we talk about preseason polls, and I'm one that pretty much my entire life, especially the last 30, 40 years of following college baseball, it may be the one sport I put the least amount of thought when it comes to preseason rankings. And this is before the portal. I mean, because you had, guys that could transfer back then, like 20 years ago, it was open transfer, for college baseball, and rosters would turn over and JUCO guys coming in the draft. To me, college baseball, you may not know what you have schedule-wise. Like, I told Dave this story. I remember there was about 9 years ago, Oklahoma thought they'd put together this massive, toughest schedule in the country. And by the end of the season, you look at it and it's like, wow, that schedule ranked 99th in the country, because all those teams that, are normally good didn't pan out. And I think that's what makes college baseball fun. As much as we want to talk about preseason, now we think these teams are going to be great and this team's going to be great. To me, college baseball, you don't know until you're a month into the season what teams are good and what teams are not.
Yeah. My thing for this season, and you kind of mentioned it, David, was like last year you went into the season, you knew that there were going to be aces at LSU, there were going to be aces at Texas. Like, all these teams, Arkansas, all these teams had these aces. This year, you walk in and you go, okay, Texas has depth. They don't have a true like Friday night ace. LSU doesn't have a true Friday night ace. Like all of their bullpen is makes the move to the starting rotation. Florida's really the only team that goes in and says, I've got two guys that I know can go 7 innings and give me a chance to win every single weekend. Everyone else is kind of like, yeah, we're bringing people in, or we brought transfers in, and we hope that success translates. So that's what I think really will be interesting to watch is what does that look like pitching wise? Like who's the ace that like comes out of nowhere suddenly like, oh, that's the guy that drove them to a championship.
Well, Oklahoma's in that same boat, right? Kyson Witherspoon. We knew the name going into last year.
Yeah.
I mean, now Oklahoma's Friday night guy was a guy that the last time I saw him was in Frisco, Texas, in person. He walked the bases loaded and then hit a guy, and that was the last time I saw that. I mean, look, he quit pitching, and you couldn't blame the OU coaching staff. The amount of faith Skip Johnson has to show in this kid to trot him out there in a season that's full of expectations. Year number 2 in the SEC. They finally broke ground on getting some stuff done at Eldale Mitchell Park, improvements, and to give him the baseball and say, you're my guy, the 6'5" lefty, after what we saw last year, that is amazing to me. I mean, Cam Johnson, Randy and I kind of talked about this, though, Zach. The risk reward is too good. You've got to throw the guy. 6'5", 98-mile-an-hour fastball, sinker, slider, great curve, drops off the table. I mean, you've got to put that out there and see if he either has it or he doesn't.
I think the opposite is true, though. I think it's more of a risk reward for Skip rolling out a true freshman against TCU on Sunday.
Well, there's that.
I mean, Cord was a guy that in high school, he was known as a hitter. Like he was one of the top first basemen in the state. Now, obviously, he's a lefty that can throw, low 90s. But what has Skip seen from day one on campus to now to go, that's my guy for Sunday night against a top 10 team in the nation? I mean, that's throwing some trust out there for the true freshman.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think watching what Oklahoma does, and to your point, what a lot of teams do. I think Tennessee's a team, you mentioned rotations. They feel pretty solid, but to your point, a couple of them are transfers. You don't know what they got. They're bragging as like their guy that was a Friday night guy is pitching on Sunday for them now. And some of that is, these teams are just flying in the dark. It's really good to look and go, hey, we went and dominated our own unit. That doesn't always translate. And so when I look at the rest of the SEC, you talk about it, some of the teams that jump out at me that, to your point with Texas and their pitching depth, the other one I like is Vanderbilt. Yeah, maybe they don't have that ace, but they've got a lot of arms that did contribute for them last year. And again, their pitching was really good last year. So that's kind of one of those units I look at and I think they could be scary because do they take that next jump, back to development with Vanderbilt?
Yeah, Vanderbilt's an interesting one for sure. What's interesting more so about Vanderbilt is in years past, they've had a Leiter, they've had a Kumar, they've had these big names. This is the first year they don't have a big name. They don't have a Thompson leading the way, but it's guys that, to your point, have been proven in the SEC, and they don't have plus stuff, but they go out and they contend, they win you games. And so my biggest concern about Vanderbilt's the same thing as last year and the year before and the year before. Do they score enough runs to win the game? They've got no power. They're not a big physical team. And so how are they transitioning to kind of retool themselves in an SEC conference that is built upon power hitters? I mean, you look everywhere, it's like, who wins the league? The guys that are hitting all the home runs. So that's a concern for sure for Vandy fans. But back to your point, maybe the second best rotation in all of SEC is actually Kentucky.
Harrison that's Cleaver. Where I was going next, Zach.
Yeah, Harrison Cleaver, and then you get Jackson Jelkin back, and now there's some risks there. Like last time he pitched was 2 years ago for Houston, but he's got electric stuff up to 98, and he's got a wicked slider. So
doesn't that kind of make this season feel it's the funnest one I can remember because the SEC is that wide open? I mean,
yeah, there's parity for sure.
I mean, so much parity, but yet they're all good week in, week out. It's just a matter of them being kind of now on the equal playing field because what we're talking about, pitching wins baseball. We don't really know who has what right now, and that to me makes this intriguing. It also, with the portal era, open transfer, the draft, guys, I mean, this right now is the hardest time we have ever seen in the game to sustain building a good team year after year.
I think a great example of that is a guy that I thought might be in the rotation this weekend for y'all in Oklahoma is Drew Rarick.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Really highly touted kid coming out of North Dakota, can run it up 98. He had some command issues at Texas, and I think mentally he had the issue where he was so hard on himself that he couldn't adjust in game and truly take it pitch by pitch. So if like he made a couple of bad pitches, it just kind of fell apart for him. But he's a kid that, Texas told him, hey, based on what you've shown us so far, we don't know how many innings you're going to get. There's a big freshman group coming in that's really good. What does that look like? And, it opened up an opportunity at Oklahoma. I'm going to go learn under Skip. I'm going to go grab some innings and, prove myself. So, yeah, the portal it's a wild place because you got guys that last year might have done a lot for you. And this year, they might not do anything. So,
I want to have a little fun here as we get close to wrapping it up. We all talk about Major League Baseball. It's a big factor when it comes to college because out of the draft, you don't have to declare. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts. I think as baseball fans, we all know there's a likelihood of a work stoppage coming after this year. How do you feel something like that on the horizon is going to affect the draft with young kids? Because, yeah, you may get paid, but there may not even be a season the next year, and you don't know what that's going to be. And young kids need to keep pitching. How do you feel maybe something like that's going to affect maybe not those first-round guys, but maybe guys that are drafted in, say, the fifth, sixth rounds that a lot of times don't make it to college or leave after their junior year?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more kids make it to school. This might be the last draft this summer where you see kind of MLB teams being real selective about the kind of the high school kids they take. This draft year happens to be very, very deep in terms of the 2026 class. I mean, they have probably twice as many prospects that are ready to make that jump than last year, the year before. But yeah, to that point, like when the CBAs negotiated in December, one of the talking points is certainly they're going to go from 20 rounds to 10 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Which means if you're not a first or second round kid out of high school, you're going to college. So the amount of talent I feel about that it's about to flood the college ranks is going to be interesting to see. And for a school like Oklahoma, that's really interesting as well because y'all bring in more JUCO kids than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Skip's relied very heavily on JUCO, and so how does that translate to? Well, I've seen this guy. I know he performs at the JUCO level versus he's a highly touted freshman, but it's all smoke and mirrors until he performs on the college stage. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
I'll tell you what, I think I know the answer to that. It's just business, right? If you've seen a guy play college baseball and he can play it, you're probably going to pay him what you would not pay a high school freshman you've never seen play the game. I hate that's where it's at, but I mean, it's what makes the most sense right now. Well, Zach, I'm going to ask you one more and then probably get you out of here. All right, year number 2, Schlossnagle. Look, the dude's a good coach. He's done it everywhere he's been. Texas has oodles of talent. What is the expectation, and what are your kind of thoughts for the Longhorns overall this year?
Yeah, I think overall this year, it's really hard to win the SEC back-to-back the regular season. Again, I think that Texas does have a much better team this year in terms of depth and talent. I don't know that they're going to have that same record, though, in SEC play. So I think they're going to end up hosting. I think they have a very good shot at being a top 8 national host, though, going into the postseason.
A top 8 national host. There you go. Not holding back. I won't call you a homer right here on this show, but you do a great job, Zach. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, on Twitter, it's Zac at the Dish. And then I write for Orangebloods, so you can get all the stuff there. And check it out.
Well, I think we lost Randy. Did he dip or what?
He did. He hated to hear that I was going to pick Oklahoma as 20th in the nation now instead of 14th.
Well, actually, I'm going to keep you right here. You got anywhere else to be for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to keep you right here until I get Randy back. Zach, overall SEC, I guess you like Texas top 8 national. They're going to be your pick to win it again this year, come out number 1 in the SEC?
I think it's going to be one of those rare years. I think they have the pitching, and the biggest thing for Texas, honestly, is just health. What does Jonah Williams' leg look like? Does A-Rod's hand stay healthy? Can Mendoza, stay the full year? So if they can keep healthy, they've got the offensive pieces. They don't have a ton of depth, though, offensively. I mean, in my mind, if you took Texas's pitching and Oklahoma's offense, right, like you've got one hell of a team going on.
You know what's funny? We sat here the exact same time last year and said the exact same thing.
Opposite, yeah.
If Texas had OU's pitching and OU had Texas, that'd be great. And here we are swapped. I think we do have Randy Heitz back. Well, Zach, as always, man, you're outstanding. Thank you for joining us tonight, buddy.
Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.
And Randy is trying to work through some technical issues here. Going to get Mr. Heitz back on pretty quick. There he is. What's up, Randy?
I was like, I'm here. I can hear you. I was on for a second. Then I didn't know if it was you or me. All of a sudden it says lost connection. And I'm like, well, I have DirecTV stream. I'm like, my internet's still fine because I've got the Georgia-Florida game on over here. I'm like,
who knows?
Okay.
Who knows? Twitter's down. They're not live streaming tonight. Something's wrong with their service. So some funky stuff's going on around the country. I don't know if you heard or if you were logged out, but Zach shockingly picked Texas to win the SEC and be a top 8 national seed. Look, I hate to admit it, but I think they're going to be really good too.
I think they're a top 8 national seed.
Yeah,
I do agree. I think LSU wins the SEC. I just like that team. I like that offense. I know what he's talking about pitching, but there's one thing I also have faith in Jay Johnson getting that pitching staff together. I think that's one thing we know out about LSU. They've got talent, and they seem to put it together, but so does Texas. I mean, it's going to be a fun race.
Both those teams have talent. They got really good coaches. Well, the two elite coaches in the country, in my opinion. All right, enough about them. Oklahoma. Finally, we've made it, boys and girls. Globe Live. Friday morning, let's rock and roll. The baseball goes to Cam Johnson. We know that. The UNLV transfer, Mercury, is going to get the baseball on Saturday, and then a true freshman going to get the start on Sunday. A little surprised that wasn't Rarick, Randy, but as Zach alluded to, look, this is Skip Johnson. He doesn't care if you're a freshman, you never played. Here's the baseball. Let's see what you got or what you don't got.
Well, it will be interesting. I did hear that the flu's kind of been going through the clubhouse, like 16 to 17 guys over the last few weeks. So you kind of wonder, nothing against Rager, but, is that kind of one of the reasons? Somebody they may have thought was going to be in that role has been sick and he's getting his energy back or getting it up, So you just never know. I was a little surprised by that. I wasn't so surprised by LJ being in the rotation because I know this much, and I'm not trying to be this way, but it's like if LJ wouldn't have been in the weekend rotation unless he was hurt or sick,
right?
You'd have been going, what happened to this kid? It's like he was kind of brought in as a weekend starter, So that doesn't shock me. I am really interested to see what Rager can do, though. I mean, he's a 6'6", 240, something like that, left-handed pitcher. Yeah. He's got the size, and Skip has talked about him as a pitcher ever since he got on campus. So I know Zach talked about him being a hitter in Texas. I think Skip brought him in as a pitcher from the jump, though.
Hey, I agree, and that's telling, right? This guy's 6'6" with power and coming into a lineup that lacked power. If Skip Johnson makes that change, obviously he likes what he has 1 through 9. And look, that's where this team is going to have to make hay, I think, to start the year. They're going to have to score runs, have to hit the baseball. And I think they're set up to do that, Randy. It might be tough past Texas Tech because I'm with Zach. I don't know how good they are. I did see him down in Frisco. Dave Van Horn's squad has taken a big step back from where we usually see him. So I think OU does beat them. But beyond that, they got really good competition this weekend, and OU will face good pitching on Saturday, Sunday. I'm real curious to see how that 1 through 9 actually looks when they take the field.
No doubt. Yeah, Tadlock's roster, it's a head scratcher to see how it's fallen off.
Fast. Not Dave Van Horn. Good grief, Arkansas.
Yeah, no worries. Tadlock, he's one of those guys that he's always recruits great kids, gets good talent in there, and it's really a head scratcher when you look at what's happened at the university or Texas Tech University in every sport across the field. And yet baseball, who was their strong sport, seems like it's falling off a cliff. And, I think Oklahoma should be able to win that game. I don't know what to expect out of Oklahoma State. New pitching coach there. He did a really good job when he was at Oregon, but still, it's one semester in. I think the biggest test for Oklahoma, and it doesn't mean win or lose, how do they look against TCU?
Yep.
In the sense of, do they come out and if they lose the game, they lose the game, but are they at least getting some offense? Or when they face that elite arm, which is what they're going to face in TCU, are they shut down? Now, at the end of the day, it's not the end-all be-all. It's opening weekend of baseball season. Everyone's getting their feet under them, So I don't think anyone needs to panic if they come out 1-2 this weekend, or get overly excited if they come out 2-1. It's just the beginning of the college season, because I'm with you. I think the offense is going to be really good. And Dave, I'm telling you, I think we're going to see a lot of different lineups. Everyone, is penciling guys in here and there. I don't think you can do that. I think they've got also not only a lot of talent, but flexibility on this roster.
Yeah, be careful if you're predicting your 1 through 9s right now. You might be right for Friday night. Beyond that,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know because they got way too many guys, and we know Skip just talked about it. He likes to see what he's got and what he doesn't have, and the only way to do that is to play him. So I'm with you. I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a different 1 through 9 every single day to roll these guys out.
100%. I mean, and like one guy you had penciled in the outfield, right? Jason Watt,
Sure.
starting center fielder. Skip said basically he's taken more reps in the infield this fall and spring than the outfield. It's kind of like that's kind of what I'm meaning by the flexibility. You got LeChance and coming in at catcher, but he's very athletic and can do a lot of things. And then the other kid, my brain, I'm in the
Brendan Brock.
Right? Yeah, Brock. I was like, I cannot think of his name. I talked about him last week. Anyway, he's another kid that Skip says he may be the second fastest guy on this team. So another bit of flexibility, and so I just think you're going to see a lot of movement. I think you're going to get, don't get me wrong, most of the season, hey, this guy's going to start at center field 80% of the time. But as opposed to last year where those numbers were like for most starters, 98% of the time, I think you're going to try to see different guys in there. And this goes throughout the year unless they have a rash of injuries. I think the depth hopefully is going to show and let guys be there. That way, if they do have that big injury, Dave, they're not totally like, okay, get in and have your first at bats in the month of April.
You and I have talked about this for 3 years, especially at catcher, right? We're like, you don't want this guy's first time behind the dish to be when it really matters on the road against somebody. And that's been problematic, Randy. I mean, I love Reggie Willits. I like his offense, but he's not been the best about getting guys playing time off the bench. He really likes to stick with that 1 through 9. I don't see how you can do that this year. In this era of open transfers and portal, you've got to give these guys a little taste. I mean, I'm not saying participation trophies, but if what you're trotting out every day isn't getting it done, either at the dish or in the field, they've at least got guys behind there to try them out and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think this is the first year that legitimately they have that kind of depth. Even though you and I wanted people to play, maybe they weren't really good enough to replace the other guys. I feel like they have the depth where in a lot of spots, hey, one's not that much better than two.
Right.
I mean, to our point about catcher, Easton Carmichael, even though Mudler was good, he was that much better as an all-around player than Scott Mudler. That's nothing against Mud. That's the reason Easton started almost every game, it felt like, for a long stretch, So I see that, but that's the difference, I think, this year. You got guys, heck, we haven't even talked about Drew Dickerson. He's a guy I love him, the way he played in the regional.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the way Skip has talked about him since he's come back off injury from the fall. You can tell Skip's pretty impressed with what the kid's doing. So that's a kid that it's crazy. It feels like everyone has forgot about him, but I think he's going to be a major factor on the team this year.
Yeah, we have not forgotten Mr. Dickerson performance out in the regional. That lived up to everything that we kind of talked about all season long. Yeah, we got why he wasn't playing. He's a young kid, needs some reps. Once he got in the game, though, it's like maybe he should have been playing. And I think he will play a lot this year. He's a contact hitter, but can hit for power. We saw that in the regional. That's going to come in handy this season. You mentioned Brendan Brock, LeChance, also a newcomer with power. Now the mainstays, where you've got to be good in baseball, this, is strong up the middle on defense, right? You've got Kyle Branch back at second, outstanding defender. And then, of course, Jackson Willits at short, we think. I mean, that's going to be a pretty elite up the middle defense.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing you like. Those two up the middle. I'm one that I will mess with everyone else. I'm not a coach, but this is just me and my philosophy. I will mess with every position on the field, as far as changing out third baseman, first baseman, maybe even catcher here and there just to give them a break. In the outfield, of course, if I've got other guys good. The one I don't want to mess with too much is shortstop, second base. I mean, to me, that is like the offensive line. Yeah. We talk about football offensive line. You need the same unit in there because they know each other. Basically, they breathe at the same time. They move at the same way. And for a double play combination and defense up the middle, you like to have the same two in there. So, I mean, I love the fact you have that team unit coming back together for the second straight year. And I think Jackson, I am truly, honestly, I think Jackson's going to have a huge year this year. I've got a feeling.
I do too. I mean, he's been great hitting for average for 2 years, really consistent. I can see him adding a power element this year, still doing his thing on the bases. and of course being elite defensively. Of course, Dawson Willis gone from third base a season ago. That spot's going to be interesting to watch. You got some guys back in the fold. The outfield we think is, well, I mean, at center field, you pencil in Jason Walk, then you listen to Skip. He's been playing infield. You're like, well, hell, I don't know. They've got 10 guys on the bench that can play out there.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I think Friday, Jason Walk's your starting center
I
fielder.
agree.
But if you tell me on Saturday, and I think Camden Johnson, not Cameron, the pitcher. I think Camden Johnson will be your starting third baseman. But if you tell me on Saturday, Alec Blair is the starting center fielder and Walk moves to third, not going to shock me. And you know what's funny? We also, the leading hitter from JUCO last year, Prado, he's in Oklahoma's bench. He led the country in hitting for junior college. That's pretty good.
That's damn good.
When's he going to play? Where's he going to play? And so there's all these different elements, and that's what also I think the DH role is going to be interesting this year. Last year it was easy to go, hey, Mudler's probably your second best hitter at the time. He's your DHing when Carmichael's, catching and vice versa. I think this year you can rotate different guys in there to keep them happy. That's another spot where we talk about Reggie trying to keep guys happy. Doesn't always have to be in the field. You and I both know guys like to hit.
Yep.
Rotating that DH in there, if you can stay hot, that's one way to keep guys happy too.
Well, I love the idea. Jason Walk at third. What does that allow you to do, right? It allows you to get Alec Blair on the field at the same time and play your best 9, 1 through 9. That opens that up. And then, yes, DH, you've got 2 really good hitters that happen to be catchers, right? So you say LeChance is catching. Well, Brendan Brock's bat got to be in there somewhere. So if it's not out in the field, it's going to be DH. Then it gets tricky about who's left, because then guys like Dickerson, Deshaun Harris, we didn't even talk about him.
Yeah.
I mean, so many options off the bench for this team, but that's where that versatility, I think, and flexibility you're talking about can come in handy, because you can stick these guys at other positions out in the field, whether it be outfield, infield, and get them in the lineup somehow. But look, I mean, 1 through 9 eventually is going to have to be set. That's how teams become really good and get that cohesion and synergy we always talk about. I just think this is going to take a while to get there.
Yeah, I do too. And I think the 1 through 9 will be set, but it will not shock me if all throughout the year, let's just pick Saturday or Sunday. That is the one day that, to try to keep guys happy and keep things going, they use a few different guys on that one day. That will not shock me at all, because I mean, that's where they're at right now. And that's a great problem. When Skip says he has the best freshman class he's ever had in his 35 years of coaching.
Yeah.
That says a lot. And I was trying to pull up the roster because I don't have all the names in front of me. But I mean, first base, Dayton Taki.
Yeah.
That's your first baseman. But guess what? They got a couple of other guys that can play that position as well, too. So, I mean, there's a freshman there, and I think Brock's a guy that can probably play a little first. So you can move some guys around and find ways, to get your best offense in the game, just kind of depending on the type of pitcher you're facing that day. I mean, you can do it if you think you're playing a team that's not that great at pitching and you have some little defensive weaknesses. That's a day maybe you start your best offense and not your best defense. I think you're going to see a lot of playing around over the next few weeks.
I agree. And a guy that adds to that versatility we hadn't talked about much, Caden Broomball, coming back from injury, been full strength for a while, the utility 5'9" senior. Can do a lot of things. Of course, Kyle Branch. Trying to find my guy. There's Prado right there, coming in from San Juan, Puerto Rico, Baseball Academy. The guy can hit, and right now I don't really see a spot in the lineup. Dayton Taki, Deshaun Harris, Gavin Jones. This team has so many players, both position and pitching. I did want to touch on pitching real quick.
Yeah.
I understand what Zach's saying about the starters. That's really important nowadays. What you guys were talking about as far as you only go 4.5 innings now. The guys behind that, Randy, that come in and give you 3-4 innings, that they're almost as important nowadays. And OU has a ton of high leverage arms.
No doubt. I mean, and Gavin Jones is the one that I kind of look at, because, I mean, last year you saw him, it's like he could get it up to 96, but it seemed like when he did that, he had no control. But when you hear Skip talk about him this year, he's 97, 98. And Skip is talking about like that being fluid. You got a guy like that, a left-hander. He's a guy that can come in and like, hey, your starter gets you 5. Hey, go give me the 6th, 7th, and 8th and get me to the closer. And that could be Smith, the freshman out of Duncan. I mean, we don't know who's going to fill that role. I mean, I think that's kind of the flexibility. Here's the thing, and fans can take it one of two ways. And you know, a lot of times you hear baseball coaches talk about it, and I don't know if it's a good thing sometimes to have this kind of depth, because sometimes when you hear you have this kind of depth, Dave, you know, it's kind of like you have two quarterbacks, so you don't have any at all. You know, so it's kind of like that's the good and the bad, but you have to have faith in what Skip's talking about, that this depth is the difference. I mean, I don't think you're necessarily going to have one guy that closes. I mean, Jason Bowden can be the closer this year, or he could be a guy that instead of going in the eighth inning, he's giving you the sixth and seventh. I mean, that's kind of the flexibility I feel like Skip has with this staff this year.
Yeah, we even talked about Rarick. I mean,
Yeah.
Zach did the Texas transfer. Yeah, high leverage arm. It's going to be fascinating to watch how these guys fill different roles as the season goes, 1 through 9 included. The back end, yes, is it Briscoe Smith from Duncan? All of these are up in the air. I think it's going to be maddening for OU fans because you don't know who it is. You don't know how they're going to perform. But it's also what makes this fun going in is so many unknowns. But we do know this. They have a lot of talent at every position and in pitching as well.
Well, and the one we didn't mention as well, that's another high leverage arm it's kind of a little bit of the Rarick story. That is Bixby, the transfer from TCU. I mean, you remember the highlight. I don't know if you saw it from him at TCU last year, where I believe he hit a guy, walked a guy, and then like blew the next three away. You know, he's got that kind of stuff. And so Sarlos is a great pitching coach. So I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't have a good pitching coach, because he did, you know, but just Skip the coach that can get through to a Rarick, to a Bixby, you know, through that head to kind of go, hey, look, this is what you need to do. That maybe another coach, not a good or bad thing, but just it fell on deaf ears coming from another coach. So I think that's the other good sign. I mean, if Cam Johnson has truly turned a corner, I think you can give a lot of credit to Skip. And so if he's done that, you can look at those other guys and go, you feel pretty good what Skip can do with some of these other high leverage arms.
I was just about to say the litmus test will be Friday morning. How does Cam Johnson look? Did that year with Skip Johnson do what we're talking about, turn the corner? Then you can have pretty good faith that Rarick and Bigsby can also do the same under Skip. To me, it's all mental with these guys.
Yeah.
And we've all talked about it. Once something bad happens, right? We saw Malachi Witherspoon go through this until he learned to adapt and get over it. They can't seem to pull themselves out. An error behind them, a walk, a hit batter, and things go from bad to worse. Once it seems they just kind of flip the page and they're able to move on, then you see good go to elite. If Cam Johnson can do that, I think he's going to be one of the best pitchers in the SEC, if not the country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Skip's blowing smoke when he talks about, I mean, I listened to an interview today with him, and he said he's the most talented kid, left-hander. He may have said just kid in general, but left-hander, I know for sure, he's ever had.
Wow.
That's a bold. I mean, think about this. He had Jake Bennett at Oklahoma, who was his second-round draft pick. You know, I mean, and not to mention all the great arms he had at Texas. I'm sure he had a few lefties I'm not thinking of there. I mean, so that's saying a lot. And so, you know, with that being said, that is all mental. He's got to have it right between the ears. And I'm not going to say he's going to pass the test on Friday. Doesn't mean if he goes out and performs great, it's not over the test for him. You got to put together a few starts, but it's at least a step in the right direction. Because to be honest with you, he was actually pretty decent at the start of last year. And then all of a sudden, that DBU game had an error happen behind him. And like you said, it just cratered in, you know. Let's see how he bounces back if something goes wrong behind him. I'm not worried about if he walks a guy, him losing it. It's more about when the defense gives something up where he knows he made the right pitch, did the right thing, but he didn't get the out. That's where it seemed like he melted down last year.
And the defense can help him out in turn. A big problem last year was the OU defense. It led the SEC in errors, and that eventually got him knocked out of the regional out in North Carolina. I asked Skip about that, I think, on the last week of the year. How do you fix that? And he said, just repetition, you know, drilling it in. I don't know if a coach can fix that, Randy. The guys, it's kind of like the shanks in golf. Once you get them, you got them. And once the errors started happening last year, they couldn't find a way to shut them off. Hopefully that's better, and that will help the OU pitching as well, obviously, not have to overcome that. But I'm with you. If something bad happens to Cam Johnson, say in the third inning against Texas Tech, how does he respond? How does he look? That is going to be – I can't wait for it to get here just because all the things we're talking about, the unknowns with this. Like I say, I think it's going to drive the fans nuts a while because I don't think OU is going to be like, you know, a top 25 looking team right off the jump. I think it's going to take some time to get there. But oh boy, if they do, it's going to be a fun year.
Exactly. And that's why I think this weekend's perfect.
Yep.
You have a Texas Tech team that none of us are real sure what they're going to be, but always a halfway decent team, right? If not good.
Yep.
You got an Oklahoma State team that I think's going to be okay this year, and then a real big test with TCU. So it's like it really lets you test yourself without diving in the deep end and going, "Hey, crap, you're playing number 10, number 8, number 7 this weekend." Where mentally it could go wrong for your team. You're playing teams that I really feel like they should go 2-1 this weekend. You would think, and come out with a good weekend, and that's kind of what you want. You've got to get some confidence going, not even so much in the offense, but in some of these arms. You want them to go out and have good outings, and get going, because they're going to use some freshmen. Is it Wisniewski, I believe, is another freshman?
Wisniewski, yeah.
However you say his name. That's another freshman. I mean, like, I wouldn't be shocked on if he's not used before then. If it doesn't go Rager, depending on the situation against TCU, Rager, Wisniewski,
Yep.
in that role, kind of back to back, just getting some young guys out there and getting them tested. Throw them in the deep end. Why not?
Why not? And that's what Skip likes to do. I'm looking forward to Friday because I do want to see this offense. I know that the early tournament last year, OU surprised and went 3-0, but man, it was by the fingernails, like 1-0 and then 3-2 scores. Really a lot of trouble getting runs across. I want to see this offense take a step to be feared in the SEC, to be feared when they're up against competition. It's been a while since they've been there, and I really want to see this come out roaring. And then, pitching, I think, will take some time to kind of figure out who's who.
Yeah, I think the one thing Oklahoma fans need to realize, and I think about offensively about this lineup, they may end up having better guys in the starting lineup than 22, but they may not. But I think the big difference, Dave, they don't just have 9. They have, let's say, 15, 16 guys, which in the end could make them a better team, even though they don't have the high-end offensive talent of a Spikerman or something like that. It's kind of one of those, the depth is going to make them better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think Brendan Brock, just a bold prediction, I do think he is that high-end guy. And
he's my guy too.
Yeah, we'll be saying, wow, what an addition that was for OU. Well, Randy, anything that you want to wrap up with?
No, I mean, other than, I know this is a baseball thing. Think we can know that we're about 3 weeks away from having a coaching search for basketball. Anytime you nearly blow a 21-point lead in the last 4 minutes, not that it's his fault. Players got to do some of it, but to me, even though they won it, that was the death knell.
Yeah, you can see that year in, year out, and then you're like, well, there's a common denominator. That's Porter Moser. Look, I didn't see it. We were calling a game at OBU, and I looked. It was like 80-61 OU with 3 minutes to go. I looked again. It's like 88-85. I'm like, this is wrong. What the hell happened?
It was a debacle. Like I say, it wasn't necessarily his fault. Players aren't doing it, aren't making the right plays and everything. But at the same time, to your point, it's nothing new.
Nothing new, and I can't wait for that to happen. At least be something to keep track of. Did see OU football made a back coaching hire, Morgan from Michigan. I don't know a lot about the guy. Michigan's been good defensively. I heard he has really good technique. To me, that's all about the players you have at defensive back, and OU has really good defensive backs.
How about this? I will say I give it the stamp of approval after Kelly Gregg today. He gave it the stamp of approval with knowing nothing, that he was on Wink Martindale's staff at Michigan, who, of course, Wink Martindale was at Baltimore.
Sure.
And he's in that lineage of Rex Ryan and everything. Kelly said, if Wink, signed off on him being the passing game coordinator and defensive back coaches for him, the guy is for real. So that's at least coming from an NFL veteran, Kelly Gregg, going, if this coach had faith in him, I think everyone should. It's a good hire. So we'll see, but I did like the hire as well. I think it's at least in the right direction. It may not be Jay Valai, but it feels like he's kind of embodies a lot, from little things I've read, of what Jay Valai does.
Yeah, well, everybody loved Jay, and if Kelly Gregg said that's good enough for me, the guy knows defense, and Wink Martindale is one of the best around. But again, look, you can teach these guys, hey, turn and look for the football, don't get your hands on. They've got to be good enough to do that. And I think with guys like Bowen and Cortland Guillory are. So, to me, it's that simple. So, good hire there. They didn't just go get an OU guy to get an OU guy, so I really love it. I'm sick of seeing that. So that's a good step in the right direction. Basketball, we'll see what happens. But baseball is here Friday morning, 10 o'clock, Globe Live.
11 a.m. 11 a.m.
Not East Coast time.
You're going to be an hour early if you're setting at 10, Dave.
Did you get your Flow baseball subscription re-upped yet?
Not yet. I'll do it Friday morning. I may do it tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I mean, at first I was like $30, but then I was like, I used the rational thought. I'm like, think about it. If you go to the game, it's $10 a ticket.
True.
I'm like, okay. And you got to be smart. The only thing you have to do, if you're doing Flow, if you're out there watching, it's worth it. Get it, right? They even have a really good broadcast team and everything. Get it. It's worth it. Just do me a favor. Remember Monday after the tournament, or Tuesday, because we don't know how the New Mexico State game is going to be done yet. Video, it may be on Flow too. As soon as that's done, cancel it. Don't let it go the month. Otherwise, you get charged. If you wait until March 15th, you're getting charged another $29. It's not worth it at that point in time for $60.
No.
1 month, pay it, watch some games, and you really get to nothing against the radio broadcast because the radio broadcasts are good.
Yeah.
But if you really want to see what this team's like, it's your chance to watch them. And it's the only time you have to do it, I believe, this year. The rest of them should all be on SEC Plus or ESPN Plus the rest of the year.
That's really good advice. I'm going to drop one more nugget. Don't get it, but find a friend that did get it. Get his password, log on, and watch it.
That's it. Yeah. I was going to suggest that, but I'm never, some streaming devices don't allow 2 logins. So
yeah, I think we ran into that. We ran into that one year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was last year or before last, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, boys and girls, enjoy it. We will be back to recap all the action next Wednesday night. We'll have 4 juicy games to talk about. For Andy Heitz, I am